The English Teacher YouTube channel, videos for success in English 103 and English 104. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the English Teacher YouTube channel. You'll see that on my screen I have a PDF from Indiana University South Bend that has a table of popular magazine versus scholarly journal traits. And so what we're going to do is try to walk through some of these traits and identify with the two other tabs that I have open on the top of my screen here. We're going to kind of go back and forth to see if we can examine these two types of sources, or these two particular sources, using some of these traits that are on this table. So if we look at this particular table, you'll notice that it shows the traits for magazines, the traits for journals, and that could be scholarly journals, that can sometimes be trade journals. It just depends on what type of journal you're looking at. So magazines are obviously popular sources written for, if we look at their intended audience, the general public, and they're found within newsstands, whereas journals are normally written for professionals within a particular field, professional colleagues, and they do require that you have memberships with an association. Generally, trade journals would be written for colleagues within that particular trade, and scholarly articles may be written for academics at that point. So if we look at the purpose of each one, magazines are obviously meant to entertain. That's why they are there to distract us as we're checking out in the grocery line, whereas journals are meant to communicate research findings, as you can see in this table on the right-hand side underneath journals. So that communication of research finding is often a little bit more boring if you're not in that field already and searching for that information. So it's not necessarily entertaining. As we look a little further down in the third row here, we have advertising. Magazines will have quite a few advertisements as part of how they pay for what they're doing, whereas journals are not necessarily worried about the money that they're making. It's more about presenting information to the reader with as few distractions as possible. And that relates partly to the publisher. Magazines will be commercial, whereas academics or journals will be more academics or specifically related to a trade. The frequency of them, meaning how often they're published, journals are published less often because they go through a little bit more of a strict review process, and magazines are published more frequently because the audience wants the news quicker, relevant to what's happening today versus maybe some research that's being done. You can also notice the difference in their tone or the language. And one thing to point out is this word professional jargon. This is the technical language associated with fields that are found in scholarly journals, trade journals. You may not understand some of the language within these scholarly journals or articles. Whereas in a magazine, those are meant to be easy to understand for the general public. The graphics that are associated with a magazine, they're going to be more photographs, they're going to be things to engage you as an audience. Whereas with a journal or a trade journal, you're going to be dealing with a scholarly journal versus a trade journal, you're going to be dealing with charts and graphs that illustrate information for you. They're going to be information based rather than pictures. The depth of coverage when it comes to magazines is going to gloss over the surface more likely in a magazine than it is in a journal. And in a journal, what you're looking for is technical information, a little bit more lengthy, just as largely because the audience will be interested in very particular things about that topic because of the journal setting. Sources cited absolutely in journals and largely in scholarly journals, and magazines will rarely cite sources because that's not what the point is of their writing. So their audience doesn't care about the information in terms of the crap test as it does really with journals. And journals, we're looking for in the academic world other sources that we can go and find, whereas with magazines, you're looking for something that you can read and it's kind of one and done. at that point. You got some information about it, you're fine with that. Credentials, you'll look for authors being a journalist, which is not a bad thing, but within scholarly journals, those will be more academics, experts in that subject matter. So if we take a look at two different examples, we have one here, and then we have one here. If we just look at them aesthetically, we can see that the PDF that's here, I guess more boring, more straightforward, no figures, no pictures, nothing like that. Largely, it's just text. Whereas we look over here on this one for a cultural article, different things trying to draw our information away from the article itself. So this is going to be more of a magazine type thing, more of a newspaper type article, and a popular source, versus that as a scholarly source. And we can see that just by looking at them and trying to spot graphics and advertisements. We can also look at the authors. The authors here, you'll see these are associated with the School of Psychology in Australia. Whereas this one here, if we click on who this author is, we'll let that go to the source. You see that she's written other articles. It's not necessarily foregrounding her education and her expertise within that field. That doesn't mean that she's not good at writing about culture. Obviously she is, but not necessarily a scholar within the field here. Okay, so then if we look back at this this table, who is the publisher? Obviously the PDF is being published by the Journal of Social Psychology. This is not coming from a commercial publisher. Instead, something like this is a commercial publisher. And so this is just taking a couple of those things and applying them to be able to spot the differences right away. If we look down at the bottom of this source, the scholarly source, you'll notice that the last pages are really filled with resources, whereas if we go to the bottom of the other page that we were looking at, the How Mothers Influence Daughters' Body Image, we can expect not to find tons of sources down here because that's not the point and that's not what the audience is looking for in this case. Okay, so hopefully you found this video useful to illustrate the differences between the two types of sources. But as always, ask your instructor if you have any questions. That's what they're there for. Our research librarian is is well versed in the difference between these. Writing Center can help with that as well. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and make sure you check out the other videos on the YouTube channel. Take care.